Alrighty, welcome to this episode of Lectures with Liddington. In this episode, we're going to go the next step, and we're going to apply what we just learned about the cell membrane. So we talked about the cell membrane and the fact that the cell membrane is there to control what's coming in and out. Well, that process of things going in and out is what we call cell transport. So sometimes you want things in the cell. Sometimes you want things out of the cell. And the idea of moving things either through the membrane or through one of these proteins, that is called cell transport. In this particular episode, we are going to focus on what's called passive transport. So there are two different ways that we can move stuff across the cell membrane, whether it's into the cell or out of the cell. We still have to cross it in some way. And there's two different ways that we can do that. One of those is passive transport, and the other is active transport. So passive transport, this is transport that requires no energy. So when you think about oh, you're being very passive. Oh, all right. Well, you're not doing anything, right? There's no energy involved. Something is passive. It's just happening. There's no energy involved. So whatever the molecule is can just go right through. These molecules that can passively move through the membrane, these are going to be small and uncharged. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, why that's the case. But for right now, just remembering that small and uncharged molecules, these are ones that can move passively. These are the ones that can move most easily through the cell membrane. It doesn't take a lot of work if it's a really small molecule, something like oxygen gas or CO2. Or even hydrogen, right? Hydrogen is very small. It's a gas, right? So it can passively move through that membrane. So these are the easiest things to get through. Another thing to keep in mind here is that passive transport occurs from areas of high concentration to low concentration. So I'm going to abbreviate concentration with brackets. So when I do this, those little brackets, it means high concentration to low concentration. So if we think of it sort of like people, they want their space, molecules are the same way. We'll talk more about that in a second. So passive transport requires no energy. Small and uncharged molecules can passively move from areas of high concentration to low concentration. Active transport is the opposite in that it needs energy in order to move across the cell membrane. So this would be large molecules or anything charged. Even if you're talking about sodium ion or a potassium ion, there's a charge on it. It's a single ion, so it's really small, but it's got a charge. So as soon as you put a charge on that, now it's going to need an active energy-based process in order to get in. And then for the size component of things, think about it this way. If you have a really big piece of furniture, it's going to take a lot of energy to move it. But if you just want to move, I don't know, your box of Cheerios from one place to another, it doesn't take a lot of energy to do that. But your couch is going to take a lot of energy. That's what's going on. Large molecules are going to take energy in order to get them across. The other thing that can happen here is the flip side. Low concentration to high concentration would require an active transport process. So there are three different types of active transport that we're going to talk about. The first of those is diffusion. Sometimes we call it simple diffusion. And that's because of the facilitated diffusion on the other side. We'll talk about that. So simple diffusion is simply the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to low concentration. Oh my goodness, we just said that. So high concentration to low concentration. So molecules move. Naturally, molecules want their space. So if you put them all in one little area, they're going to want to spread apart. So they're going to want to move away from each other. We'll do a couple demos where we'll see this in action, but naturally, molecules want their space. So if they're really clumped together in one area, they will naturally move away from each other so they can give themselves that space. Osmosis is a specific type of diffusion in which this is water moving. So the difference here is essentially you have a difference in concentrations of something. Remember, if we go back to solutions, something is dissolved in water. The solution inside and outside of the cell has a different concentration, but whatever the thing that's dissolved in it is can't move easily across the membrane. So water will move instead. So when there's that difference in concentration, water will naturally move in order to respond to the difference in concentration. It's still moving from an area of high to low, but it's the high water to low water that's a little bit different. So you have to kind of think of it that way when you go to do, say, an osmosis problem. When you have to do that, keep it in mind, water's the one that's moving. Facilitated diffusion is the same concept. We are moving molecules from high concentration to low concentration. The only difference is it's slightly bigger of a molecule, so it needs a little help. To facilitate is to help, right? So in diffusion, let's say I've got oxygen gas. Remember we talked about oxygen gas just a little while ago. It's really tiny. It's 2 oxygens double bonded together. That's it. That can scoot right through that cell membrane. It's so small, it can just go right through. It can diffuse across that cell membrane. Something a little larger, say a glucose molecule, it's not huge, but it's a little too big to squeeze through those spaces. A glucose molecule would need a transport protein. This particular protein, because it's passive transport, we call this a protein channel. So protein channels are specialized proteins embedded into cell membranes that allow small but not teeny tiny small things to move across that cell membrane. It's kind of like an open door. It allows you to go through into the other side. If you're going into the cell, it would be into the cell. If you're going out, it would be out. But you're going across through that wide open door. So that is going to be it for now. We talked about passive transport, the difference between passive and active transport, the 3 main types, diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated diffusion, none of which require energy in order for them to occur, all of which aid in allowing relatively small, some level of small, uncharged molecules either into or out of the cell. From here, where we're going to go, the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about osmosis specifically because it's a very, very common occurrence in cells. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that. But for right now, we're going to pause there and do a little practice.